Yo, what's up guys? Welcome to another ERC Community Night lap guide video. Today we're in the Formula V around Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. I found it to be quite a fun combination. The track size suits this car, both being on the smaller side of things, and I just found it was a good combination in terms of the way you can whip this car around the corners. You're like on the limit of the tires all the way around this track, and I find it to be a pretty fun circuit in general. Before we get into the hot lap, I do just want to say, if you have any questions about this week's combo or any combo in general that you might be struggling with, feel free to send me a message in the Discord. I'll respond fairly quickly and I'd be happy to help. So let's jump right into the hot lap. Alright, so now into the lap guide. Coming into turn 1 here, we have a double corner almost, with the first one leading directly into the next one. So just thinking ahead, you want to set up turn 2 using turn 1. So coming into here, I am turning in, that's a little too slow. Turning in just after this grass here, not turning too much, otherwise I will hit these sausage curbs or little yellow curbs on entry that'll just send me wide. So getting as close as possible to them is key. Flat out all the way through here until you get to this crossover point between the dark and the light patch of track, and that is where I'm braking just before I get to this line. Braking in a straight line, this car is very easy to lose the rear in, so being very precise with your braking and steering combination is good. Otherwise, you can lose the rear. So I am braking in a straight line and downshifting pretty much right away, just to get that extra engine braking out of the way and won't cause me a spin later into the corner. Coming into here up to around 75-80%, getting on this red and white curbing, then dropping the brakes. You can see up top the graph is fairly clean, I guess you could call it, and then just small trail brake down, and then just dropping the brakes completely just so I don't have too much weight on the front tires that'll cause me to spin. Turning the wheel even more right before I'm back on throttle, and I found something with this car was throttling slowly, a bit more like slow than usual. Found that to help with understeer. I found if I just mashed the throttle right away, I would get a lot of understeer, but with the slow application of throttle, I wasn't getting too much. But this corner, just talking about like the feeling you get through it, you can right about here, tend to get a lot of oversteer. You can see my steering wheel is actually pointed just a bit to the left from the oversteer I got after the downshift and the trail brake. So just being careful with how the car is feeling. But yeah, kind of just like dancing with the car a bit, drifting wide right here to about middle of the track, and then getting back on throttle, cutting back, and going over this apex here, running all the way out wide to the grass. You can't do that, it doesn't give you an off track, so that is fine. Coming down this next straight here, heading into this corner, and stayed in third gear, braking just before the end of this concrete curbing. I only got to around 45%. It was a bit deceiving, this corner. You may think you have to brake later and harder or earlier and softer, but you just either go wide or overslow way too much. So braking just before the end of this curb here was good, and not too much pressure, otherwise you will overslow. And just being gentle on the brake release as well. You can see I'm not doing too much micro corrections with the brakes, as I would do in, say, a Formula Ford. You kind of have to be really smooth with this car and just minimal steering, and as soon as I get back off the brakes, I'm turning the wheel more, coasting for a bit here, and then slow back on throttle. Not keeping it too tight to the curb on the apex here. You can kind of carry a bit more speed out through a bit wider, which is good, but yeah, there's some banking, which you can see. Not a lot, but maybe just a little, a couple degrees worth. You can use that to your advantage, but once again, slow application on throttle will minimize the understeer you get. Kind of taking a bit of a late apex as well, getting closer and closer to the curbing as you get closer to the exit, and not running out too wide too early, otherwise you will go a bit slower. Running out where I was perfect. Coming into the next corner, another tip I will give you guys is for shifting. If I just go back a bit here, you can see I shift just before I get to the third light here. I found that to be a bit quicker than running all the way to the 5 lights. Gave me around a couple hundredths worth each time I would shift, so that can build up to around a tenth or two over the course of a lap. Up into fourth gear for this corner, I turn in just around this second cone here, making sure not to clip this apex where this green curbing is here, because you want to be thinking all the way ahead to turn 7, and you want to use these corners here to set that one up as best as possible. So sticking it in the middle of the track, following this rubbered line here, not turning too much, otherwise you will scrub speed off. So just kind of, there's a term called fishing for grip, where you can kind of just turn the wheel and then release and then turn, just to kind of see how much steering you need for that corner without getting understeer or scrubbing off too much speed or not turning enough, and then you know for next lap how much you can steer. But then turning the steering quite a bit more just before you get to this apex, and then just missing the sausage curb, and keeping it flat out, keeping the car on this rubbered line once again, and you should have enough grip to then be able to cut back to this curb here, and braking just after you get off of the curb, once all 4 tires are settled on the ground, and you have a stable platform, getting up to 65% and dropping the brakes fairly quickly with minimal steering, and then letting the car coast for just a second, and then slow application on the throttle. This corner is also a bit deceiving. It is a fairly long corner, and you may think you have to wait to get back on throttle, but I find just a slow ramp up of the throttle doesn't give too much understeer, and you're allowed to take that corner at that speed, and it just helps with the minimum speed. So I don't know if it's just me, but it looks as if there's a bit of banking as well on this corner. So you can kind of use that to your advantage if there is any. Might just be seeing things, but yeah, not keeping it too tight on the entry there. Again, kind of taking a late apex through there. But you will find in most corners you'll get some oversteer right as you start to turn in. So just you want to test that out just to see how much steering you can add with the brakes. But yeah, keeping it wide here, slow ramp up of throttle, and then clipping this apex here and running out all the way to the grass. And then this section here, I find it to be one of the most fun sections. Quick little 3 corners, turning in early, just clipping the sausage curb, just missing it, and then cutting this curb as much as possible, making sure you don't hit this orange cone, otherwise it will give you contact and a 1x. I think the 1x comes from if your tires touch the green, but then keeping the car turned to the left just so you can set up the next corner as best as possible, turn in flat out, and then lift all the way down to around 20%, getting as close as possible to the sausage curb. You will feel a lot of understeer in this corner, but you'll feel that in all corners, and you kind of just have to trust the car and just test it out for yourself just to see what it feels like. But you can get back to full throttle and you won't run super wide. I'm using all the track here. If you don't use all the track, it's free time to be gained, so making sure you're doing that. Up into 4th gear for this straight, and then coming to this one, turning in just after I pass under this bridge here, and just after I turn in, adding 10% brakes at the maximum. Nothing more, just enough to get the fronts initiated and the turn-in initiated, and getting as close as possible to the sausage curb. Not running out too wide and not getting back on throttle too early, because you got to be thinking ahead to the next corner. Running out to the middle of the track, keeping the steering turned to the right just before you get to the end of this grass here. Turning in flat out and then lifting, and then getting back on throttle fairly quickly right as you reach this curb here. This exit you don't want to run out too wide on. You will get an off track if all 4 tires go onto the green surface, so just making sure you are using as much track as possible without getting that off track penalty. This next corner you can take it flat out, turning in at this blue light post here, all the way to the white line on entry, and using all the curb on entry and all the curb on exit. Should be easy flat out, won't have too much issues there. And into the final corner, braking just at the white line. Similar to turn 3, it's a bit deceiving. You can brake late and hard, but I found braking at this white line was perfect, and hitting around 50-60%, and then just keeping that pressure for a second, and then trailing pretty quickly with little steering, and then as I get to 15, 10 and less brake percentage, I start to turn even more, and then again slow throttle application and a bit of a late apex as well. Another thing with this car, you kind of want to drive it similar to a low powered go-kart by just keeping the revs up and the minimum speed up. The minimum speed kind of goes for any car in racing, but just keeping the revs up for any corner with this car will give you free time. So depending on where your throttle point is in this last corner as well, will determine if you can run all the way out wide. I didn't have to run out wide because I did take a bit of a late apex as well, so also where your apex point is that'll allow you to run wide or not, but it was quicker for me just to keep the car tight on exit and just running over this white curbing, red and white curbing here. But yeah, keeping in a 3rd gear all the way to the line, and that should give you a 144.1. So yeah, that's it for this week's Community Night Lap Guide video. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you improved from it, and yeah, once again, feel free to reach out in the Discord if you have any questions. Be happy to answer them. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.